Hi and welcome to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. We're going to do a cold and dark start and a flight from here to Darwin International Airport. I'm going to do as much explaining as I can. We're not necessarily going to use the correct procedure. If you have looked up here at checklist, you'll notice there's a lot of steps, but please don't be intimidated. Microsoft Flight Simulator is for everyone and anyone can fly this plane relatively quickly. So I'm going to show you a quick way of getting the plane up and flying. Once you know that, then you can look into the systems to learn how to do it correctly. I have looked at the real life videos and I know a lot more about the correct procedure, but we're definitely not following that here today. So let's jump into the cockpit and we'll get started. First thing I'm going to tell you is you can use the arrow keys to go up and down, left and right. But what you may not know is you can hold down right Alt and use the forward and back keys to go forward and back. So then that brings you all the way back here. You can look out the windows if you want, very quickly. So it gives you window views and then you can go back to here. A good view to use is if you go up to camera and just click on pilot and click on landing. That'll put you to here, and that's one good view to get you ready for most things. First thing I'm going to do is disable the yoke on the left. I'm going to go through these buttons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. I'm going to go up to here on bleed, left click twice so it's on auto, and I'm done. There's nothing else to do down here. I'm going to look up at the top. Up here is a big yellow crash bar. Hold down the left mouse button, click on it and move it upwards. So we want to move it up. One left click on set battery for source, one left click on set main generator. Go across, starter, left click once to on. Up here, fuel select, left click once on auto, and left click twice on AP trim, so that it is on. And that's it, we're done all with everything up there. Now, to start the plane, all we need to do is we're looking at the throttle. First thing we need to do is get it into low idle, push F3 on the keyboard. It's now in low idle. Now we're going to look at some information up here. Under NG and ITT, there's two little white triangles. When they enter the green region, I can then put into high idle. So green, and then this one green. So I'm going to go back to here. Just going to move this up into low idle, high idle, sorry. From low idle to high idle. You can see that's now in high idle. The next thing I'm going to look for is a big red bar flashing, which will have the word ITT in it. When it has the red bar and it's flashing with ITT in it, we can move it across to taxi. There it is, ITT, red bar flashing. Now go over to here and drag this across to the left. And just put it into taxi. So there we go, throttle, taxi, and we're good. And that's it, the plane is started. All the rest of it will turn it up and go away. And you can be aware that your parking brake is still on, so the plane won't go anywhere. But the final step is just to turn your parking brake off. Parking brake's off, and now the plane won't go anywhere because it's just in taxi. You can look outside, we're not moving, and everything's good. So now the final things we missed, you can put some of your lights on if you want. So you can put 1, 2, 3 outside, inside lights on. You can put your taxi light on if you want, one click. And we're set up and ready to go. So hopefully that's an easy way of getting the plane started for you in some much easier steps. Just to go through it again with you, clicked on all these buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, missing the inert step. Going to bleed, 1, 2 clicks to put it on auto. Up the very top, moved up the crash bar, left click once source, one left click on generator, one left click on starter to put it to on. We move the fuel select to auto, and we double left click twice to put AP trim onto on. If you are ever using the autopilot and it's not following the line, you've clicked autopilot and it's just still not following the line, and you've clicked nav, still not following the line, it may be because you haven't done this. This has to be on. AP trim must be into on mode for your autopilot to work. So just something to be aware of. Another handy tip, you see this big screen? If you want to change the zoom on this map, you can go down to here, click on MFD, left click once. Now have a look, and you'll see there's two knobs, one on the top, one on the bottom. The one on the bottom you can actually use the mouse wheel on. So if I use the mouse wheel, you'll notice I can change the zoom. Look at that. So then you can change the zoom in this plane. If you find this video helpful, please do consider subscribing and liking the video. I really appreciate all subscriptions, and I really do get excited when I get them. Every like and comment I read and look at, so please do feel free to leave a comment. I will read it. I may not answer if I don't have an answer for you, or I simply don't know, but maybe someone else will read your comment and they'll also be able to help. I also appreciate any feedback, so feel free to leave any comments there. I will read them, and I really appreciate any feedback. So now we're going to get ourselves ready and take off. We have a flight today to Darwin. We've got our parking brake off, so we need to get our rudder pedals ready to go, and we're just going to use our throttle to turn it around. Now this plane can almost turn around on the spot, so I'm just holding down the brake, right brake, pushing the rudder to the right. I release the brake just enough just to let them start moving, but you'll notice it's almost moving on the spot like I say. Now I've got auto, well, all crashes is on, live weather is on, the live players are on, but I've got auto air traffic control. So I'm just going to tell it to depart straight out. It's only a tiny airport, but it's a good idea to always have a look, just to see if someone is landing, especially considering I'm using live players. We could roll all the way back to there, but we won't need it today. You can taxi from here if you want, it's no problem. You can see the lines in the ground. Another handy thing to follow, especially if you're at night time. Now, just a thing, and also when you're landing, if you put these white lines around about here, and the same on the other side around about there, but about here, you'll notice when you're in an external view, it's pretty central. You can see that. The middle wheel is in line with the runway. So when you're landing, you're looking for putting the white lines here, around about there on your vision. So at that angle. I don't know how it works in VR, but that's how it works when you're using the normal screen monitor. So on the other side, you'll notice you're looking at around about, you know, depending on where your camera is, but you're looking at around about here. So yeah, just something to give you a gauge. I'm just sitting in the default landing, and you can tell that that's where that will be your default landing. And when you look in the external view, that's pretty lined up straight. Okay, so just some helpful advice. It's good to mention now rather than when we're landing, because it's a bit hard to tell you while I'm landing until we're actually on the ground. Let's take off. I'm just going to put my feet on the brake, let the revs go up a little bit, let go of the brakes. Now I'm going to give it full throttle. And from 70 upwards we can pull back. We only have 50% fuel, so we're not very heavy. Just pulling back on the throttle, on the joystick. Push G on the keyboard for the gear. And we'll just test. We can see our gears going up. We can see our runway in the distance. We'll activate the autopilot very soon. We'll let the altitude keep going up. We're already heading in the right direction, so we're not doing anything wrong here. And we'll start explaining some other things and features of the plane. I did record this video just before. I was talking so much and gave so much information that I wasn't following what I needed to do, so it is quite difficult to actually explain what you're going to do and also record a video. But it does mean I'm a little bit tired because I've just done a whole conversation. I'm not going to use that video or upload it. So we're now at 2000. Some things, I'm going to go up to here, increase altitude and I'm just going to change this number to around about 8,000. It's changing the number over here. So I'm going to hover over this and use the mouse wheel, increase selected altitude, it's changing that number. I'm going to get that number to 8,000. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Goodness me. 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, and 8. So then, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click autopilot here with the AP and the white square around it. Left click once. Now it still won't follow. The next mode we need to click is nav, NAV, and then it will follow this big line up here. But, important step which you haven't worked out maybe. Down here PFD you've got nav source under PFD home. You need to change this to FMS. If it's in nav 1 or nav 2 it'll do nothing. This has to be PFD home, nav source, FMS. It will also tell you over here active nav, FMS when it's on that. Now if I click NAV, I'll just click it now, it'll follow that course. Now it's already got, no, it hasn't got altitude mode selected, so I'm going to select the altitude hold mode. So I'll left click, actually because it's still going up, I'll click VS, and then I'm going to click increase. So it's going to keep increasing around about that much up to 8,000. If you need to go back down again, it'll change back to alt when it gets to 8,000, but if you need to go back down again you can push VS and then push decrease on the vertical speed, and it'll decrease to whatever your new set altitude is. We'll demonstrate that when I can, because I can't do anything until we get up to 8,000 at the moment. Once you're up at 8,000 then we can change it again. So it's got this here, AP YD off. If you're wondering what that is, it's just this here, YD damper on. You can put it on, it's no problem. Now also, we've got time, we can explain how we're going to do the ILS landing. I'm going to put in the code into the plane. So we've got two screens. I'll use the close one for me at the moment. I'm going to click on Navcom, so we're clicking the button next to Navcom. Click this on the screen, won't do anything. I'm clicking this here though. Then under here we've got audio and radios. We need to click audio and radios. In here we can now see Nav 1. If we click on the numbers over here on the right, at the moment as you can see it's 110.50. Left click that and I'm going to put in 1097. You don't have to put in the dot, you just put 1097, it does the dot for you, and click transfer. That'll become the active number. The active number is the one in white, so 109.7. If you want to swap between numbers, you can click this button up here, hold the button down, don't let go, and notice it'll swap. So now 110.5 is active. Left click again, and it'll swap back to 109.7. Now say I want to change the other number as well. So put 1097, transfer. Both of them on nav 1 are now 109.7. Say I want to change nav 2, I can left click, I put on 1097. They probably don't do this in real life, they have a backup one, but I'm just demonstrating. And I put 109.7, transfer. So now we've got 109.7 for both nav 1 and nav 2. But just be aware you can swap them here. Now, to put this information in, if you go back to this page, PFD, you'll see bearing 1 and 2. So if you left click here, you can change bearing 1 to nav 1, bearing 2 to nav 2. You can also change it to nav 2 or whatever you want, but we're just going to keep it on nav 2. Up here in nav source, so to explain what we're going to do when we're finally landing, we're at the right altitude, got the gear down, got the flaps down. The final steps are going to be, we change this here to nav source. Before we do, we look over here and we see that there's some data in here. So the nav, it won't say no data, it will say something else like indicating that there's some data information for the source, IDS, and this will also change to LOC1, like localizer 1. But at the moment it's got no data because we're way too far out. So at the final steps, make sure that there's some data here. We will left click once here to change it to like nav 1 or nav 2. You can see it changes, and then we'll go up to the top here. I'm just going to quickly activate our nav mode again so the plane knows what it's doing. It will have populated data here. Now when you change the bearing information, you can also change it here under PFD settings. You can see bearing 1. So when I left click over here, can you see how it changes? Nav2, GPS, etc. So just be aware you can also change it here. So I'll go and change this. It'll populate the data here, depending on which one it's being used with, the nav source. To nav 1, it'll then populate that information there, and you go up to the very top here, and you click approach mode. You turn approach mode on, and then you can turn your altitude mode off if you want. And then that's it. It'll use its glide slope information, which will be coming up here, a little green dot with the word G, and it'll come down towards your altitude. When it matches you, it'll bring you all the way down to the runway. Now, it won't flare for you, so the last 100, 200 meters, or whatever you're comfortable with. You can turn the autopilot off by left clicking once and then just hand fly it in. To give you an idea, a good altitude to choose to catch the glide slope would be 3000. You can use 3000 to catch it. It'll see the information at around about 20 nautical miles out. And a good speed to have, while you're trying to set everything up and work out what you're doing, a good speed to have would be about 200. But once you're coming in and starting to do the click the nav source, click the approach mode buttons, you want to be around about 160. That would be good speeds to be sitting at, with your gear down and your flaps out on a landing. And just keep holding the 160. Very important to make sure you keep an eye on your speed. You can always see what the plane's currently doing up here in the green. So we know it's in FMS mode, autopilot. The YD's on. It's holding altitude 8000. Now I said, but I'd show you how you can change this. So I click VS, it'll do nothing. But now I'll tell it where I want it to do. So I want to decrease or increase. Let's increase to a little bit. And you'll notice it's now going up. But I haven't told it what I want to increase it to. So say I want to put 9000. So I can increase this number. Notice that number there is increasing. I increase it to 9000. You can see 9000. And I keep clicking increase vertical speed. And I click on VS. So now it's going to keep going up until it gets to 9000. Then it will stop. The VS will disable and we'll go back to altitude hold mode. I'm going to go back down. I click on VS and I click on decrease vertical speed and it will decrease to wherever you want. A good comfortable speed would be somewhere between 500 and 1500. If you're just simming, using the game for fun, you can use that. But yeah, please don't be intimidated when you look at the checklist, but do have a look through it at some point. There's heaps of useful information in there, but don't be intimidated by this plane that it's too hard or it's going to be too difficult for you if you're just starting. It's not that hard. This game and this simulator is for everyone. Anyone can learn and have fun. You can fly from one destination to another. There's so many places to explore in this game. So many different planes as well. This plane handles really awesome. Not sure how it compares to real life, but as far as the simulator goes, compared to Grand Theft Auto 5, you know, that's fun. This is also fun, and it feels realistic. So, for simulation purposes, this game is absolutely fantastic. So many places that you can explore. We've never had Australia done this well before. Some of the cities need work, but certainly all the country areas look absolutely fantastic and stunning. It's a real pleasure to be able to experience this game. Keep our camera there. Just looking at our wing. Really cool, awesome wing views with this plane, even in the front seats. Let's have a look. Oh, so I'm glad that you can move all the buttons, so you know you can change the airflow. I don't know if they work. If you know if they work, please let me know in the comments. But yeah. And down here we've got a button called Ram Air. That does work. I can only talk about DCS. Now knowing DCS, Digital Combat Simulator, you would use it in emergency if you got hit or you're damaged or something's wrong and you need to descend, and your pilot will pass out and the screen will go black if you don't put it on ram air. So it was used in emergency. It says emergency here, emergency ram air, so I guess it's got a similar purpose, but I'm only familiar with how it works in the F-14 Tomcat and DCS. I don't know how it works in this game. I know we've got the button, so I suppose we're using it in a similar situation until we can descend to an appropriate altitude where we don't need the ram air. You have got oxygen up here for the high altitude, so for the passengers and for you, which you could be turning on. Again, because we're just using the simulator, it's not too important. I mean, obviously we would have turned off this, put the lights off once we finished taking off. But we're just in the remote area of the Northern Territory in Australia at the moment. Coming over towards Dumper. So you know about the zoom level on this. You're just going down to here, putting on the MFD, and then you can use the bottom wheel, put your mouse over it, and just use the mouse wheel, and it'll scroll in, and it will scroll out, so then you can see the big picture. Very useful to know. The way I want it set up, this front screen, I would want on PFD, so you can see the nav source, and the other one, I would set up this one under navcom, so audio and radios, and you can see audio radio information. If you look down, you can notice it has ADF, so you can also use ADF navigation, which is very, very cool. Be a lot of fun to play with. This game seems to use all the real life codes, so 109.7. So if you're looking for a source, you can use the real life ones and look them up, which is very cool. We'll test that out and see if it works with this airport in this game. What else do we have? We've got timers. So we've got two places you can do timers. You can go up to here and you can go to nav log. You can start a timer here just to keep track of what's going on if you find that helpful, or to work time between different locations. I just used the video at this point in time because I'm recording, but you've got that option, and then you've also got an option down here. You can click on timers and you can click start, and it will give you a timer here. Now also, if you go off this page, you'll notice the timer is up here, just here, so that's another thing for you to know. We've got the bearing information here. Just to make it clear how you get to that, you click on PFD settings, the button below that, and it comes up to this page with bearing 1 and 2. To go back, you click under back, just click that button, and it will bring up this page, which is the default page, and you can see the active nav. So when I change over here, at nav source to nav 1 or nav 2, it will show here active nav, and it should, I think, also show up here. This will change up here. If you're doing a takeoff on a, I don't know, high altitude or something, you can change this. It'll change your indicated air altitude. You could be landed at the runway, you just want to zero the height of that runway with this information. You can use this here. Could be useful in some interesting situations. With this plane, I don't know if it overheats or something, but sometimes it may be a good idea just to make sure you're not on full throttle with this plane, especially if you're just simming and you're just learning. So yeah, just set it back a little bit off full throttle so that there's no problems. We're just setting at 9,000. So you want to bring it back to 8,000, we'll practice. I'm going to click on this here. I'm going to change the number. So the first thing is I'm going to change this number here to 8,000. Go here, decrease. Okay, so it's 8,000. It's still doing nothing because we haven't told it to do anything. Then I'm going to click VS. So now I'm telling it I want it to sink. It's still doing nothing because, well, how much do you want to sink at? So I then click here, decrease vertical speed. I want to sink at that much. So now it'll sink at that much to 8,000. It'll stop at 8,000 and keep going from there. So it understands what it's doing. You can see that information is changing up here. The VS alts, negative 600 FPM. So yeah, look, the autopilot really isn't that hard. Don't be intimidated by that either, with all these weird buttons and stuff up here. It's important to know the ones you need. And then once you know that, you can learn about more things. It's got a really useful feature up here, the LVL, turn level mode on. And you can click that and it will quickly level the wings and keep you flying straight. And if you just want to look at scenery, or not have the plane crash while you're looking around, that's a good mode, just to whack that one button, bang, and don't have to worry about anything else. Such a great feature, especially for flight simulation purposes, where we're trying to look at scenery all the time, or you just want to check out your references, or you want to alt tab out of the game and look at something else, and you don't want the plane to crash, you need to look up charts. It's a really useful mode. So yeah, something to be aware of. Now, shutdown procedure. We can have a talk about that. I'm not going to do the correct shutdown procedure with you. I mean, certainly you can go through and click all on the buttons, but I'll just show you a quick way, because that may be real helpful. This plane is so easy. All we have to do is we go down to here. You can move this throttle down to here and put it into cutoff. You can also go down to here and change the fuel tank selector and put that to off. So that will kill the engines. And then all you have to do to turn the power off is we've got this lovely big yellow and white bar. Left click once, move the bar down, and bang, that will turn off the source and the generator, and we're done. Nothing else to worry about. Power off, engine off, done. How easy is that? So just bring the throttle down to cutoff, put the fuel tank to off, and bring the big yellow bar down. Bang, and you can jump to external view, and you're finished. And you can go off back to the menus and do whatever you want. So yeah, just an easy way to shut down the plane quickly if you want to shut it down fast. It's got some crew music over here. These don't move, these little things. Some planes they do in other games, but it's not necessary. At night time, all this lights up, which is very cool. Seems to be well modeled, this game. I mean, for flight simulation purposes, it's fine. I usually leave this one on, the yoke, just so I have that, but this one's in the way too much for me, especially because we still need to look at the gear. You'll know the gear's down when you have 3 green lights. They're not super bright, but you can see they're definitely not on at the moment. When they are on, it'll be a green colour here. You'll know your gear is down. You can always jump to external view in simulation and look, but obviously they can't do that in real life, so they're looking at these lights. You can do a light test if you want. You can see the colour, so you know what you're looking for. It's got to be that kind of green. It's not super bright green, but it's green. So there's that. You can use trim on this plane if you need. Obviously we'll just increase our land speed and our temperature a little bit. It's a bit cold maybe. If you know if this works, like if it impacts any of these figures, cabin pressure or something, please let me know. I'm just keen to know. I haven't noticed anything, but I'm very, very happy we can turn them. You can change it for the pilot and the autopilot. Up here on the top of the roof, well, we've got a button for internal lights. You can left click this little spot here and that will turn that light on. And up here above us, we've got a spot and we can turn another light on. So we've got those two as well. As for the ones in the back of the plane, don't know what they do. They just sort of turn on when I want to. If you know of a way you can turn them on and off, let me know, but you see what I mean? There's nothing to click, so presume in real life you could click that. So there's that. I'll just take a brief moment and let's look at the view. One really cool view that you can use is you can go up to the top here, you can click camera, you can go to showcase, and I believe fixed camera and 4. Fixed camera and 4 will give you this underside view of the plane. And you can just watch the plane going along from here. Look at all the cool scenery, and you also got a bit of a perspective of where your plane is in relation to the scenery. It's not empty, which is very cool. Yeah, really love that view. Let's go back to cockpit. A good one to select is landing. If you click landing, you can always look all the way back on both sides with landing. Some of the other views you'll find it is locked and you can't look past that point, but if you go up and hit camera, pilot, landing, you'll then be able to look all the way back, all the way back. This game supports Track IR5 at this point. I would like it to work with the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. That does work with DCS, Digital Combat Simulator, and IL2 Stemovic, but it doesn't work in this game. So if we can get the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 working, that'd be cool. I've contacted both Microsoft and Tobii Eye Tracker 5 and given them feedback. And I don't know what more I can do to encourage them to get that support into this game. I do have Track IR5, I should say. I haven't tried it with this game yet, but I believe it is working and operational. So if I really have to, I can use that. But I'm all set up with my Eye Tracker 5 now, so I really want that Tobii Eye Tracker 5 to work with this game. That would just be brilliant. So hopefully we can get that working at some point in the future. So down here, we just got this sitting on nav1 109.7, and down here we've got the PFD home set up, nav1, nav2, FMS. So I'm putting this one here because we need to click it easily, so we're just changing this to nav1, approach on, and we take the altitude mode off, and it will just glide ourselves down onto the runway. Important thing to note, but you need to make sure that you've activated the approach mode before the glide slope has reached your altitude. So if you're at 3000 and the glide slope is already down at 2000, it won't catch. You've gone past it. So you need to make sure you've enabled it before that point in the descent. It should be above you still. So yeah, good altitude to sit at, it's about 3000. In this flight we can get away with it, there's no big hills or mountains. But some flights you'll find you can't do that yet. You're going to have to watch out because there's a hill or a mountain you still got to get over before the final approach. But a good guide to sit at is around 3000. Your speeds, at the start while you're setting everything up, sit at 200. But once you're trying to come in and you've got your gear down and everything, sit around 160. Bring it down to 150 if you want. A good starting speed is 160 to try and aim for. We will put the flaps into landing. With me, you'll notice I won't put the flaps into landing until almost the last moment. And then we've got our landing gear into the down position. Just cruising along at the moment, up here at 8000. Now somewhere between Dumper and our next one, which is Ruska, I'm gonna get ourselves down to the 3000. So by the time I hit Ruska, I'm at 3000. By the time I'm at Vegapu, I'm gonna have the gear and the flaps slightly up. That's way early, they don't do that in real life. But if you want a bit of a guide, always go up the top and you can click on travel to. You can see here how it has all the different stages. So taxi, takeoff, cruise, descent. So that's stage 5, we're descending, and then approach, and then final, and then a taxi. So yeah, just be aware that you've got all these options here. I am showing the full flight because for me to learn, I really need to see the full flight. Some people even ask for the full flight. Everyone realizes that this is the real game and that you have to do a full flight in the real game. So I'm going to show you the full flight. No music, no fancy annoying music, just the full raw flight with me talking, but you can hear clearly. So that's what I'm going to do. I have done shorter videos, of course, but I do also find a place for the full flight videos, especially in this game. And for me personally, when I see a full flight video, I'm like, yay, awesome, someone's done a full flight. So it's a lot more useful to me. Sometimes they do an explanation video and they just explain this one thing, and I can't make nothing of the video because I just don't know what they've done in DCS or whatever. It's just too short. I don't understand the steps to get to that point, so it's not helpful to me. But when you can show everything, then you can start to put the steps together and you can make sense of it. So yeah, we've got this nav1, nav2, and we've got ADF down here, which we can use. So cool to have that. So much to learn. Flight simulation is very deep. You can learn a lot of different things with a lot of different planes. You can fly to different locations. This plane opens up a lot of doors to you because you can land at airports you couldn't ordinarily land at with a 747. The shorter length runways are all accessible with this plane. So it's a really good plane to start with from that aspect because you can really make use of all the airports in the game. You can make use of ILS, you can navigate. Got a beautiful map here on the screen to look at. It's quite similar to what it is in real life. The real life thing has some sort of display down here, and you know, it looks somewhat like this. There's some other features they have up here and stuff, but you know, it's close enough for simulation purposes for someone who's not trying to learn the plane in real life. Just trying to have some fun after a hard day at work, then you know, this is fantastic. But they all have different utilities, different purposes, so do check out the other planes in the game. They all have different handling models, and it will make you better at understanding how to handle them when you have flown different planes. Gives you a broader experience. You can quickly adapt to a different plane and go, okay, this is how I have to treat this plane. You can sort of see its acceleration, you know whether it can get over that mountain ahead of you, if it's going to have climbing speed to do it, or you know, you can start judging things. You can come up with your own opinions on things, which is great. You can then give feedback in forums and help other people. Flight simulation isn't my main interest. It's very much a side interest. I'm not so deeply into flight simulation as some people. So yeah, this is very much a side interest for me. But I'm interested enough to have a look at it. I think it's interesting as just a computer software aspect. I mean, I guess that's where I come at flight simulation for. Not so much interested in the simulation of the planes or the flight, but I'm more interested in this is just a cool piece of technology software. They've put so much programming into this to make it all work, and you know, all the different layers and the textures, and it's great technology. So I'm just really find it fascinating that we've been able to develop something like this with such high detail. Someone wants to go to this much depth and show like each screw, you know, like that's just for visual purposes, but it serves no purpose. So it's just great that they've gone to so much detail. I can't unscrew this in any way. It's there, you know. I can look at it. That's very cool. They've gone to a lot of effort. I think it would be a shame not to have a good look at flight simulation. Even if you're not interested in it, please do have a look because they've put in a massive amount of effort of this, and you might be surprised. You might become interested and look into it deeper, and it's so much to do. Hopefully I've helped make this plane a little bit more accessible for everyone. With the startup, we'll demonstrate the landing. As you know, with YouTube, you can jump to the end or the start of the video or wherever you want very quickly. That's also why I think it's okay to record the full video. So we're past Dumper, we're going to do our descent process. I'm going to stay down to 3000. A little touch early, but we can do it slowly. So we'll change this here number, decrease selected altitude. I'm just going to use the mouse scroll wheel while hovering above it. You'll notice it's changing that number. And I'm changing that number down, in theory, to 3000. There we go, we're at 3000. And then we're going to click on VS. Still not going to do anything. And then I'm going to click on decrease vertical speed. You can see it slowly coming down now. At about 400. Can make it faster, but that's alright for the moment. Got a few more minutes before I have to start freaking out. Speed's going along pretty nicely, quite high. We're definitely going as quickly as possible. Fuel is all good. We can see fuel up here, 38% left. And also, we only took off with 50% fuel. And also, we can see the fuel here. I don't find this the easiest to see, but 55, 52 at the moment. It'll keep rotating between the tanks automatically. Do the tank selections, you'll see this go back and forth. It's doing that because up here, we've got this set to fuel select on auto. And if I didn't explain it before, if your autopilot's not working, you're hitting autopilot, hitting nav, got the big line and it's not working, up here, this AP trim must be into the on position. AP trim must be in the on position for that to work. If you followed the steps I said at the start, it will work, because obviously we clicked that, but if you didn't, and you're just wondering what's going on, and that's the only thing you're trying to get out of this video, that could help you if you're trying to work it out. You now know how to use the zoom on the map. Just changing to MFD with this button. You're on this screen, and then you're using the bottom mouse, this wheel, just hovering above it, and then scroll the wheel above it to go zoom in and out. I'll just zoom in a little bit, zoom out a little bit, there you go. I can go back to Navcom, audio and radios, and I can see what's going on over there. I'm going to bring our speed back, or our throttle back just a little bit further. Because we're descending. We're almost down to 7,000 now. We should be at 6,000 at Ruska, so you can see we're on the way. $240 when we're descending. Maybe 220 will be good for a little bit. So we know how to shut off the plane, bring the throttle back, turn off the fuel tank, up the top, big yellow bar, bring it down, shut down to complete, and turn off all the buttons if you want, but that's just a quick shutdown. The wings, you'll notice rattle in the winds with this plane. With the turbulence. You'll also notice you've got the exhaust over here, heat. And if you look out the window in the corner, you can sort of see the exhaust here, the haze just around here and just up here. Very cool effect. And at night you can see this screen in the glass out here, the reflection. Sometimes with different lighting you can see this writing and that writing out here in the window, the reflection. You can lightly see a reflection at the moment, but not very much. But yeah, at certain times of day, especially at night time, you can see this screen in the window. Very, very cool. co-pilot. And then landing. Coming down to around about 6,000 now. You can see we're well on our way. Don't think we need to descend any quicker than this. We might be a little bit early, but that's okay. Ready at 6,000. Quite a lot of turbulence here, you can see. Clear sunny day if you're wondering what the weather is like with live weather in the game in Australia at this time of the year. Well, that's the weather. You also have down here, you can click on the option for MFD and you can click on weather, click weather selection. Now this screen up here will show, click radar horizontal, any bad weather in front of you. It does work, it's just we don't have any weather that's bad at the moment, which is correct. And you can also show the vertical. So very cool. Just something to know if you're looking at the weather ahead. Want to know what it's like. Not all the planes have that feature, but this does. So very cool to have. Let's go back to the PFD and we can see the screen again. Got our timer going here still. Yeah, landing speed definitely want under 150. But as you come out for the approach, you want to be at least at 160. You can bleed off that last speed easily. This plane will float very easily, so it doesn't need, it won't automatically flare, but it will float very easily if you pull back hard on the joystick. So you don't need to do it very much with this plane. Extreme gentle. But it won't do it automatically. The autopilot won't. So you disable the autopilot and then pull back gently on the joystick just to land it. I really don't want this up anymore because there's just no weather to talk about. So we don't need that. We'll go back to the map. We're all good. But yes, these buttons are not just for looks. They all do something. That does something, that does something. These three all do something, which is good. They work. Temperature okay at the moment. Everyone's comfy. We're down to around 5,000 now. Just 2,000 more to drop. 5,000, 4,000, 3,000. I think we can achieve that. We don't actually need it by Ruska. We can get it by the VegPoo. If by VegPoo we've got 3,000, that's good. I think we're okay. Don't need to descend any heavier than what we're doing. Then we will bring flaps out towards landing. We'll bring our gear down. And the important thing to look at for us is to see if this will populate. Make a note, you can see at the moment it says no data, no data. When it has a signal, it's going to have some information in here. If you do not have any information in either of these, there is no point clicking nav source and changing it to nav 1 because it can't see a signal. So there's something else wrong. You've got the wrong number. It may not necessarily be the right number for ILS code for that runway. But so it will populate even if it's the wrong number. But if you've got no information at all, then it's not going to work, you know. It's got nothing. It's got nothing to zoom in on. So you need to have a look again at what your details are over here and make sure you've got that correct. You've got that one enabled, so it's active. You've got the bearing information in here, so you're checking what's going on with nav1 and nav2. I've changed it all to nav, all the same code, the 109.7. If you want to test this out yourself and land at Darwin International Airport, you can use that number, 109.7, the ILS. I believe it's runway 25. And you can practice if you've never done ILS landing before with this plane. It's a nice easy region to learn in because there's no big hills or mountains or anything like that. It's nice and flat. Weather's even good out here, so you don't have to worry about that. They do have wet season. You're not always going to have good weather out here, but obviously at this time it is fine. We're coming down to 4,000 now. We're well early. Our speed is, I said 220. We're coming down towards 220, so that's all good as well. We can keep bringing that throttle back a touch. Certainly not going to give it more throttle. 27, 26. You can see it coming down. PFD home, audio and radios. The power now, when you're getting towards the runway, the things you've got to be aware of is your rudder pedals, your feet ready with it, or maybe on your joystick you can adjust it with the twist of your joystick, but either way you need to be ready with that. You need to be ready with your wheel brakes. Hit the ground with your wheels and just keep it straight on the runway with your rudder pedals. You're not applying the wheel brakes straight away. Just keep it straight on the runway with your rudder pedals. Then push F2 on the keyboard to put the propeller into reverse mode. So that will start that running. That will keep slowing the plane down. Once your speed is like well under 100 and you're down to like 80 or something, then start using your wheel brakes and you can apply them harder and harder as you need it to slow the plane to a stop. And then you can bring the throttle out of the reverse mode by pushing the throttle just forward and take it out of reverse, and go back into forward mode, and then you can taxi off and go wherever you need to. I have crash mode on, so we could crash and it could mess up the whole video. And we have real weather and live players, but we're just going to show an ILS landing at the Darwin International Airport. We're going to try and turn off the autopilot as late as possible, especially because I'm trying to demonstrate. If you like hand flying it in, go for it. Turn it off early. Good practice, really. This plane gives you the opportunity to hand fly it in all the time. Some of the big airliners, you're not going to hand fly much. You're going to be just using the ILS to come in for the landing. But this plane gives you the ability to do ILS and also gives you the ability to actually hand fly a landing and be a fun landing as well. It's a very engaging plane to fly, very responsive. It's not like DCS or some of the military aircraft, they're super responsive, but it's still responsive for a civilian plane. I don't know if it has any military purposes, but I'm pretty certain it's used by civilians in real life. Crazy how you can see dirt on the windscreen. There is no windscreen wipers on this plane, so unlike the King Air where you can put windscreen wipers on, there's nothing like that on this plane. So we're almost at 3,000, you can see that. Coming up to Ruska. I'll look down here for the nav1 information, see if it populates. Then all I'm going to do is go over to here, change the nav1, approach, click that button, and I click this button, Alt, to turn it off. That's it, I'm all done. And then once I'm 100 meters above the runway and we're all good, I left click once and disengage and hand fly her in. So I was talking about getting the gear down and the flaps down. We're at 3,000, I'll just wait a few moments longer. And then we'll begin that. We're sitting on the 220, you can see that, which I was saying. Very close to where we want to be. $220. And I'm not touching anything here, the plane's just doing it all for me. I'm telling the plane what to do, obviously, it wouldn't do anything without us guiding it. Switch this back to the screen so I can see the active nav. I know what's going on there, because that's going to become important soon. About 20 nautical miles, it should populate, no data. If you're coming at an airport on the side, it won't populate. Even if you're close, it's got to be like out from in front, lined up to populate. So if you're wondering what's going on with nav data, that could be one of the reasons. Outside air temperature today is 22 degrees. I hope you have all enjoyed your flight today. We're about to descend down for a landing. Please fasten your seatbelts and get ready for landing. We hope you fly with us again in the future and enjoy the rest of your day. The weather today down in Darwin is above 22 degrees Celsius. The weather is fine and calm if you can't tell outside your window. And we are having a little bit of turbulence at the moment, but it should settle soon. Just below 220 now. Very soon I'll activate our gears, and I will activate the flaps slightly. It wouldn't be the correct procedure with the flaps, I'm just doing what I'm doing. I'm just trying to demonstrate. Not sure what's going on with that number. Rate per minute, this is the fluctuating numbers. Altitude in feet, 2473. The cabin pressure. Fuel is still okay, so we'll have a last look at the fuel just to give you an idea. 32%. So we started with 50%. We need to be past halfway to be okay, and we're not even at 25% yet, and we don't have that far to go. So we are all good. 46.65 gallons shared across the tanks there. 46 on the left and the right. We can tell our flap information down here. I think it will also show gear information when it's brought out, but you can always tell down here anyway. But I think that's another place you can look for it. We'll check that if we have a chance. My really important thing is to activate this glide slope before we're at the spot. So we're going to have a little G and a dot up here. As the dot comes down to meet us, we've got to be enabled with that approach before that point. Very important. It must be enabled. It's coming up to Ruska. Ruska will bring the gear down. We are at altitude that I'm wanting to be at, so you can see how clear it is out here. This game, or this video, is just released this week, so this video was made in the release week of the game. I did not get early access, so I haven't had a head start at looking at any of the features and functions and how to fly these planes. I also haven't flown this plane before in another simulator, so this was all new to me as a module. I didn't have anything to sort of draw on background experience in how it handled or any of the buttons or features or anything like that. So I've had to sort of catch up a little bit. Coming up to Ruska there. I haven't found a lot of videos out there, at least in this point in time, on how to do the ILS landing in this plane. So I'm hoping this video is going to be actually helpful to some people. Again, if you find this video helpful, please do consider subscribing, liking, and leaving a comment. Do any of those things, that would be fantastic. Really appreciate everything. Still just around 220. And what I'm doing is a good idea. Always keep an eye on your things. Don't just keep your head out the window forever. You want to have some concept of what's going on in case something's gone wrong, or the autopilot's disabled, or some other planes in other games, the autopilot seems to just disable. Something weird's happened. I haven't noticed that with this plane. It's pretty reliable. But I guess there's some circumstances if you're moving the joystick, it may disable. I have not tested that in the extreme. Maybe it goes into a thunderstorm and it might disable. I have not tested that. So we're coming up to Ruska. We're doing 220. I'll see if I can get my speed down to 200. And then we'll talk about our gear. There's probably some information here about your gears. Landing gear extended below whatever, 118, 150. Up, down, 172. I'm going to bring it down to around 200, so it sounds like I'm bringing it down a little bit high. It should be more at 172. But we're just trying to demonstrate. But please be aware that, yeah, probably bringing it down a bit early here. So I'm sitting on 180, okay? I'm doing it because I want a little bit of a buffer. The plane's going to lose altitude, and I want to look at an external view while the gear comes out, so set ourselves up there with a view. And then I'm going to bring the gear out so we can see Ruska up ahead. It's still very, very early. You would not need to bring it out this early. I'm going to bring the gear down to G. You can see it goes into red. Oops, sorry, we're going to bring the gear down. I'm going to have a look. We can see the gear coming out. Front wheel as well. We know the gear is out. We know back in here now we've got 3 greens, so we know the gear is out. You can see our speed. We've got that little bit of buffer to handle the fact that we've got the gear out. I can start bringing the flaps down. I'm just going to put it to there at the moment, very slightly. And just watch our speed. We've still got that last mode to push it to landing. But we're so early. I'm pretty certain I would never do this in real life. I'm trying to prepare early here for the purposes of learning. And that's what simulation lets you do. You can do the wrong procedures and not hurt anyone. No planes were hurt in the making of this video. FMS is still enabled. So real interesting to look at here. We don't know if this number is going to work yet with the whoops. Scroll up, scroll. There we go. With the 109.7, we'll find out if this works soon. Sitting at 170. I said I wanted to be 160, but we're quite early, so we're good where we are. We're okay, especially considering we got the gear down, so we don't want to be going too fast. We don't want to damage that gear at this point in time. We're not going fast enough to damage it in the simulation in the game. In real life, there might be another different story. Don't need to consider that at the moment to have fun. Outside air temperature is 22 degrees, ground speed is 210. With active FMS is active nav. So you want to set your screen up, I guess, around like that. Probably not, probably more like that. So you can see the button just down there in that corner. So you click that once, make sure it says nav 1 here. We go up to the top, we click approach, and we click alt, and we're done. We just hands off. We watch what happens as we come close to the runway. We'll do one to click on AP, which will turn the autopilot off, and then we'll just adjust the throttle to get ready to land. So we're demonstrating we can tell our gear is out. We still have one stage of flaps available to us. And we're super duper early with all of this preparation to get ready for land. What I'm going to do in the meanwhile is just zoom in here. We're watching this nav, wanting to know when that populates. That's the important information that I'm looking at the moment. We can still see our altitude and our speed. We can see the vital information, but we're looking at the nav information. We want to know when that populates. It may be helpful to see the map slightly. Just the final steps there. So that's what I'm looking at. Sitting on 180 here. Plane will crash if it's not happy with what we're doing. You can overstretch the aircraft, etc. Still using that FMS as the nav source. We can see the plane's turning at the moment. Just slightly. I think we can change our view to something like that. And level out again. It's making that final turn towards Vegpu. Roscoe to Vegpu. Very strange names. I don't know who came up with these. They're very strange. It's holding 3000 pretty steady and very good at the moment. Now the important one, I don't need to look at that, I don't need to move the screen at all. Bring up this, zoom in. When we hit this La Paz, we absolutely need to be activated because we're coming straight down from there to the runway from that point on. So yeah, when we get towards La Paz, we should be able to activate it. Then it's just a case of letting it run in. We'll watch the glide slope information very carefully to make sure we're still below the glide slope at the time of activation. We're certainly over 36 minutes into the flight now. We can see our distance, and we're heading at 272, or bearing roughly 270 at the moment. You can bring up weather information to here, I believe. Radar controls. Not sure how much of this is working, but we'll leave you there for a little while and we'll come back in just a moment. We're just watching this nav data at the moment. And we should be back. We don't have any information yet on the nav data. We'll look at the external view. Have a little look at our scenery. You're wondering what the scenery is like out here with these beautiful red colours. Very symbolic of Australia. Awesome imagery. Jump back into the plane. There we go. Very stable at 180 and 3000. Don't need to be ready with the rudder pedals yet, but soon. You can relax. All those screens are ready. You can go up to the very top and there's this button up here for landing. You can put it into landing lights if you like. You've got our landing lights on. I think in the real life plane there is a button above, up here somewhere, don't know, and they can hold down a button, one of these buttons, and it makes the steering wheel vibrate as part of the startup tests. So they click that button when they're still on the ground, up there somewhere, and this vibrates. But it's just interesting because I'm looking at the moment with all this turbulence and Just seeing if it's, you know, vibrating at all in any way. You can see it moving a little bit, rocking. Just watching that steering wheel. You can see it's going left and right as needed by the autopilot. You'll also notice this here, the nose down, nose up is turning by itself. I'm not doing that. It's all the autopilot keeping this in check. That's how it's turning that wheel. It's using that to keep us on this at the moment. A little way out of VegPoo, so we're going to get excited when we start to see this populate with data. Nav1, Nav2, we've got our numbers, 109.7. If you do want to test this out yourself, you can do so in Darwin International Airport. I believe it's runway 25, ILS. It just looks cool to even see the plane with the gears down. It's a great opportunity just to have fun and look at what the gears look like outside, you know, down. Look at that, how cool is it? You can put it on drone camera, obviously, and get a better view. I'm just using this view at the moment, but there you go. You can see the gears. Down and out. We've got our flaps, usually on the inner portion. They're just down slightly at the moment. They're slightly different with each plane, but they seem to be quite large in this plane. We've also got back here. There's no flaps on there, of course. The ones we're looking at are down here. You can change this number, I believe. I will look into that. It's not critical to me, but would be fun. I might try and select something realistic, if I can. We'll move towards more realism as we go. This is only released week of the game, so lots to learn at the moment. I released some videos, didn't really do any talking because I didn't really have a lot to say. Still learning the game myself, guys, so just showing what I can of the game. Do I think it's worth getting? Absolutely. Does the game have lots of problems? It does. The longitude, Cessna citation longitude at the moment has a range which is not working. It's supposed to be 3,500 nautical miles. It cannot do that. We've all reported it in the forums to let them know. So they've, you know, I don't know how it got past the beta part of the testing. I mean, you would know all this at that point, basically. So they've released the game knowing that a lot of these things are not working, with the intention of fixing it up at a later date. But when you can't fly that distance in the game, it means that the flight plan we've got to go around the world in that plane, well, that's not going to work out because the plane can't do that distance. So I'm just waiting to be able to do that. And so the game's out, but I can't play it, I suppose, in a way that I want to. It's, every confidence it's going to get fixed, though. But we are waiting. A little bit frustrating. We think we'd have stuff like that down on release, but it's good enough to have a look at the scenery in the game at the moment. And there's plenty of problems with the scenery as well. I think they're quite appreciative of people telling them about the problems and things that need to be fixed. It's a massive undertaking to try and cover the whole world. So we're just going to make that turn now. Can you see that? And also look here. So very soon we will get information. I'm going to keep a close eye on this so you guys can see the exact moment that it populates with data for this runway. The nav 1 and 2. That's the one we're watching. We want to know how far out. Will it pop? Look at that. 26.1, 26.1. We've got IDN, nav 1, nav 2. 26.1, guys. We have a signal. We don't have any glide slope information. We just have the IDN. So there you go. No glide slope information, but we do have that. We can scroll this one in. That is that answer. But definitely by Le Par, I've got to activate, or even just slightly before, but that's what's going on there. Go back to Navcom, audio radio. So we now have a signal. We can activate this by changing nav source, approach, alt off. They're the three things. We're 23.1 out, still quite a way. Our gear is good. Our speed is not. We're a little bit fast. We do want to start looking at getting down to 160, so you'll just bringing back that throttle and getting used to where the throttle can sit at this point in time. Very gentle movements on my throttle. 170 now. I wanted to sit on 160 to be happy. Looking at, no, the other thing looking for is just up here, should be a G and a dot for the glide slope. Just watching to see when we get that information. I need to make sure the glide slope is above us before I approach this approach. Look at that, see the G? And you've got the little square. So that means the glide slope information now. So now we have glide slope and we have that. I'll let the FMS take us a little bit closer, but I'm very closely watching this. This starts coming down to meet us. I need to activate. Speed sitting on 160 almost. Got a lot of turbulence. Yes, we've come down, we're getting a lot more turbulence. It's running with live weather. We've got some semblance of realism here, which is nice. Don't know about the time of day, but other than that. You can see I'm now very close to 160. That's where I'd suggest you sit around about now. I'm getting ready to activate. Again, I'm watching that glide slope. We're sitting at a distance of 15.5 at the moment. I have not activated. Just waiting for Le Pas. As soon as we get to Le Pas, you're going to see me start going crazy. I'll very quickly activate. Mouse ready to click on this, ready to click on approach, ready to click on alt. The three things I'm going to do. Setting on right speed. Altitude is holding nice and steady. We can see our IDN, and you'll notice this will change to LOC1 when I click on it. It should be like localizer 1. It may stand for something else, but that's what it says, LOC1. Just coming up to Le Pas at around about 12.5 now. I can also just check here. You can see. Glide slope's coming down, can you see that? I need to make sure I activate before this glide slope reaches us. So I may not be able to wait for Le Pas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the nav source to nav 1. I'm going to click approach. It's now pushing us out towards the green line. Approach is on. I'm taking Alt off. It's turning us in towards the line. Can you see that? Approach mode is on, so it should bring us down with the glide slope. And this is the important bit. We want to see the 3000 now come down by itself. That's not me doing it. It's not me changing the throttle. I'm touching nothing. You should see our nose get pointed down. You can see the runway gradually in the distance there. Let's watch this. This is an important moment. Can you see that? It's coming down. It's coming down with the glide slope. We've captured the glide slope. The plane's captured the glide slope. We're on path to line ourselves up. The plane's still working on that. It'll turn us right in just a moment. And the speed is going up slightly because we're now diving, so you need to keep an eye on that with your throttle. You need to activate the speed yourself, self-regulate that. I'll just give you a view outside. You can see the runway is down there, and we're sort of lined up with the runway. Plane is working out how to bring us in. We're having a very bumpy approach at the moment. 165, 2000, bringing us in. So the final steps now, putting ourselves onto landing gear, so I can put on landing gear. Just watch that speed. You may need to give it more throttle once you put it on landing gear. Just as a guide, you probably need to give it quite a little bit of throttle if you're not sure what to expect. You can see now I'm around about 130. It'll change depending on the weather conditions that you're flying in. So 160 now, I consider in this external view, I'm not stressed at all because the plane is bringing us in. You see that? ILS Landing. And there you go. So it's helping us come in for the landing on that. We're going to jump back in because I need to keep an eye on what's actually going on. Speed 130. Now you want to get ready with your rudder pedals. You also want to be ready with clicking on this button here, disengage autopilot. When we hit the ground, we're going to disable the autopilot. We will flare ever so slightly. Do not do it very much with this plane, as I say, because it is easy to float. You do not need to pull back very much at all. Bring the throttle to idle. Let it fall onto the runway. Use rudder pedals at first. Push F2 on the keyboard to turn on the reverse thrust. And then as your speed comes down below 100, you can start to use the wheel brakes. So we're coming in here. You can see just how well that plane has helped us get in. It's got us all the way here without us having to do anything. How useful is this to know? Again, if you find this video helpful, feel free to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. I really appreciate it. Let's get going. So we're almost at the runway. I'm going to disengage the autopilot. Look at that. Disengage the autopilot. Throttle to neutral. And very gradually on the down and then the front wheel. So I'm not doing anything at the moment other than using the rudder pedals. Just keep it straight. And then F2 on the keyboard for the propeller reverse thrust. You can see our speed's really low now, and you can use the wheel brakes. Now I have not landed at this runway before, so I'm not sure where it's going to tell us to go. It's going to tell us to go ahead, so that's cool, and we can see a spot off to the right there. I didn't have to freak out, we didn't have to hit that spot to the left of us. So I just moved the throttle forwards again to give us a little bit of movement and take it out of reverse thrust mode. You can see we're pretty central. We'll turn right here. Nice safe landing. Our wheels have not popped, we have not crashed. You can bring our flaps in, F5 on the keyboard to bring your flaps in. Just using the default options. Obviously you could have changed it, or you might have a function on your throttle. If you do that, you can use that instead to adjust your flaps. And you know, I'm not quite centered because this line should be over here at the moment. I have done better landings. It's a lot easier when I'm not trying to describe, but that was totally fine. Just to actually learn the process, you've got to see the ILS. That's, you know, the critical part. Seeing it working, you hopefully can understand how to do it yourself, and then you can land at many airports with ILS around the world. You can disable that autopilot earlier if you want, but at least you have that functionality. If it's bad weather and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't land there, you now have an option that you can use to help you land. I don't know where it was telling me to go, but I think it wanted us to go all the way down there and then down right. So I've just taken a shortcut, but we're fine. We've just come off the runway. This is probably a little bit better. I found some of the pathing options a bit weird. Now, sometimes there's a guy standing there with the sticks, and sometimes there isn't. There's just 3 guys walking around and not doing anything. But it looks like we actually have the guy with the sticks today. Yep. So we're just going to get into that zone box. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to quite follow these lines because it's easier if I come out here somewhere and then try and make the turn. So you'll notice I'll come out way wide here. Now, of course, you can drive it from in here if you want. It's no problem. I'm just using this because we can. We're in a simulator. I'm playing for fun. But if you want to do it from the inside view, you're more than welcome. I mean, in real life, you don't have these big blue squares around your location and big blue dots either, you know. But we're in simulation, so I'm trying to take advantage of that. And you don't see that very well from in here. It's just sort of, you know, you don't have the same concept. So now he's going to tell us at the moment, the right wing, we're too far right. So that means I've got to keep turning to the right. He wants me more right, more right, more right, more right. Okay, so now I can start leveling ourselves. We are looking not too bad, a little bit to the other side, and now we're dead on. Can you see that? Left and the right. He just wants me to go straight, but just going straight is harder than it looks. And he's just going to bring his arms together. When his arms are crossing, we can stop. Look at that, we're stopped. So we jump into the cockpit and we just put on the parking brake and bring the throttle all the way back. We want to shut the plane down now. Can you see that guy over there? He's telling us that we're happy with that. Cross, please stop, don't move anywhere. We're in the square and we're where we have to be. So that's a really successful parking. I'm going to show you the quick way to turn it off. So this, move it over to here and then all the way down to cut off. You can also go down to here, change the fuel selector to off, and then to very quickly turn off all the systems, this yellow bar, bring it down, and you're complete. Thank you very much for watching. Please do consider subscribing, do like the video and leave a comment. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope you found this video useful. Feel free to share the video as well. See you in the next video. Bye for now.